Brought to you by Penguin.
The Anthropocene Reviewed, Essays on a Human-Centered Planet. This is the author, John Green. To my friends, colleagues, and fellow travelers, Rosianna Halse-Rojas and Stan Muller. Introduction. My novel Turtles All the Way Down was published in October of 2017, and after spending that month on tour for the book, I came home to Indianapolis and blazed a trail between my children's treehouse and the little room where my wife and I often work, a room that, depending on your worldview, is either an office or a shed. This was not like a metaphorical trail. It was an actual trail in the woods, and to make it, I cleared dozens of the prolific and invasive honeysuckle trees that choke much of central Indiana, and I dug up the English ivy that had taken over, and then I covered the path in wood chips and lined it with bricks. I worked on the path 10 or 12 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week, for a month, and when I finally finished, I timed myself walking along the path from our office to the treehouse. 58 seconds. It took me a month to build a 58-second walk in the woods. A week after finishing the path, I was searching through a drawer for some chapstick when all at once and without any warning, my balance failed. The world began to roll and spin. I was suddenly a very small boat in very high seas. My eyes shivered in their sockets, and I began vomiting. I was rushed to the hospital, and for weeks afterward, the world spun and spun. Eventually, I was diagnosed with labyrinthitis, a disease of the inner ear with a wonderfully resonant name that is nonetheless an unambiguously one-star experience. Recovery from labyrinthitis meant weeks in bed, unable to read or watch TV or play with my kids. I had only my thoughts, at times drifting through a drowsy sky, at other times panicking me with their insistence and omnipresence. During these long, still days, my mind traveled all over, roaming through the past. The writer Allegra Goodman was once asked, "Whom would you like to write your life story?" She answered, "I seem to be writing it myself, but since I'm a novelist, it's all in code." For me, it had started to feel like some people thought they knew the code. They would assume I shared the worldview of a book's protagonist, or they'd ask me questions as if I were the protagonist. One famous interviewer asked me if I also, like the narrator of Turtles All the Way Down, experience panic attacks while kissing. I had invited such questions by having a public life as a mentally ill person, but still, talking so much about myself in the context of fiction became exhausting for me and a little destabilizing. I told the interviewer that no, I do not have anxiety around kissing, but I do experience panic attacks, and they are intensely frightening. As I talked, I felt distant from myself, like myself wasn't really mine, but instead something I was selling, or at the very least renting out, in exchange for good press. As I recovered from labyrinthitis, I realized I didn't want to write in code anymore. In 2000, I worked for a few months as a student chaplain at a children's hospital. I was enrolled in divinity school and planning to become an Episcopal minister, but my time at the hospital disavowed me of those plans. I couldn't handle the devastation I saw there. I still can't handle it. Instead of going to divinity school, I moved to Chicago and worked as a typist for temp agencies until eventually landing a job doing data entry for Booklist.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?